things in them. I mean, I can't tell you all of them. For instance, the one on the left here with the balustrades, that used to be full of lawyers. That's where the dance studios of the University of the Arts are, our biggest art school. They have buildings all along here. We call this the University of the Avenue of the Arts. Instead of it being a place where they roll up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock, it's open at night. There's the Academy of Music on your right. The Lion King is playing there. Opera plays there, ballet. The Philadelphia Orchestra used to be there. That was built in 1857. And that's why they have the gas lamps on the front of it. The orchestra didn't much like the acoustics. In fact, the subway goes right under the street here, and I could hear it rumble inside the Academy sometimes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Because it was built in 57. It wasn't built to insulate from things like that. The new building up ahead here on the right has the orchestra hall rests on rubber pilings so that it'll absorb all the vibration of the traffic. And they're very quiet and very good acoustics. It better be good. It cost $200 million. $30 million was given by Sidney Kimmel. He was the founder of Jones, New York, and he came and gave $30 million here because his father was a cab driver here. This is where he grew up. He's given a lot of money in Philadelphia, and that is a great building just to go inside and see. They'll let you in any time to tour it. We're going to leave this Avenue of the Arts, but there are many things along here that we can see. 3 miles down the street here is where all the sports stadiums are. You can take the subway under this street right to all of them. If you ever want to go to a Phillies game, right down there. I don't know why you would want to go to a Phillies game, but if you ever did. What? Yeah. So we're leaving the Avenue of the Arts, and now this is a totally different neighborhood. This is a wonderful residential neighborhood called Washington Square West. See, the houses on the right were built as single-family houses in the 1840s. They're now 5 apartments each. And every single big house along Vine Street here is apartments on this stretch. There's a coffee house, here's a pub. That's 30 Franks. Everybody on there is named Frank. You can go back and decode that sometime. See, this is a very friendly neighborhood. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity, what your color, where in the world you came from, what's your orientation, you're going to fit into this very cosmopolitan area here. And it's sort of funky too. Look at all the different fronts of the buildings. Nobody stopped them here. Further down the street, we're going to go get back further in history to the colonial area called Society Hill. And there, everything is totally controlled, and everything's smaller and more expensive, and all single family, no more apartments. So you sort of gradually ease out of this neighborhood and into the next, and going from the 1840s to the 1740s. So the buildings will get older and older and smaller and smaller. Along here on the right, we come to the Antiques Row, where we have 300 antique dealers. Everything from $25 bric-a-brac to $25,000 furniture. And on the left, a nice Best Pocket Park. That's like London. It's called the Louis Kahn Park, named after the great architect from here, Louis Kahn, who designed the House of Parliament for Bangladesh in the Kimball Art Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Anybody want to go antique shopping? See, they're starting to open up for Sunday. No? Sometimes I have to settle an argument here. Somebody says, "Dear, I want to go antique shopping." The other person says, "Oh, no, not today." So I'm always for the shopper. But my settler is right there. See that store with the yellow frames? They have 700 different kinds of beer. I have been in there recently because I got the feeling I've been talking about it so many months that I ought to check it out. And it's fun. I'm not sure whether they really have 700 beers. They have many hundreds, though, and many you've never heard of. You could make up a 6-pack of 6 different types. Their only condition is that you must make 6 different ones, none the same. And then you can buy that at a pretty good price. We're leaving this neighborhood called Washington Square West, heading for Society Hill. Society Hill got its name when a historian named Charles Peterson back in the 1950s pulled his name out of the papers of the old days and said that William Penn had wanted to give the piece of land to the Society of Free Traders, so they would name it Society Hill. And that was the beginning of a tremendously successful turnaround for that neighborhood, to making it from a very poor, bad neighborhood into a very rich one. There on the left is the first hospital in the Western Hemisphere, the Pennsylvania Hospital. The building in the middle has a balustrade around the top where they were going to put a dome, but in 1800 when that was built, they put the first operating theater up there with a great skylight. The hospital was started in 1751 by Benjamin Franklin, always involved in starting new institutions, and Thomas Bond. The operating theater up there needed the skylight because you couldn't do surgery by candlelight. So if you were scheduled for an operation, it would be between 11 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And you hope for a nice sunny day. And you hope for a fast doctor too, because they had no anesthetics in those days. The thing that really shocked me though was to see up there that they had 2 levels of seating around the room, and they could accommodate 300 people. The hospital sold tickets to the general public. Anyone could go watch an operation. That was a different day. They had public hangings back then too. Now here, see, the buildings are changing. There's some modern buildings here still, and many of these are still apartments, but the floors are getting lower, they're getting smaller and older. And this neighborhood is a very hard neighborhood for me to interpret as we go along, because there's always some big part of it that I can't get to. There was an African-American presence along a block to your right, all across that area from 300 years ago until still today. Mother Bethel Church was built there in the 1790s by a former slave named Richard Allen. He built the church there that was the first African-American religious site in America. Back here is Vilna Lithuania Synagogue. 100 years after Richard Allen, the former slave, started the first African Methodist Episcopal Church there. Then we had a tremendous migration from Eastern Europe, and we have people who came from Russia, escaping the pogroms. We have people from Lithuania and so forth, and they filled this neighborhood. But then, by the end of World War II, they moved out and moved further north. This became almost like a slum, and now it is Society Hill, this tremendously affluent neighborhood of Philadelphia. The 2 churches here are important. In 1777, George Washington was in Valley Forge, and the British troops occupied Philadelphia. They used that Presbyterian church for a stable and infirmary and brought up its pews for firewood. This was the Church of England. They didn't touch that. That was built in 1761 by 80 residents of this neighborhood. It's still an Anglican church, old St. Peter's. Inside it looks just like it did in 1761. Wow. It's an interesting one to go inside. At 3rd Street that we just passed there, a great street, you can find the Powell House there, another one you can visit. Samuel Powell helped build that church, and he lent his pew to George and Martha Washington. So if you go into old St. Peter's and sit at pew 41, you'll be sitting in the pew where George Washington slept. Worshipped. Now, we've come back 100 years, because 1840 is when those houses I first pointed out. This is a 1740s market. This is a ceremonial market today. This was a teeming market full of produce and fish and meat, poultry and everything for this neighborhood, all the way from 1745 till 1955. Of course, when people come from England or Europe, and I say this is an old market, they scoff, because you've got markets in Italy and in England that are 2,000 years old, and that's a couple hundred years old. But that's old for America. Right. This is stop 17. If you want to go to get a Philadelphia cheesesteak, half a block ahead, 2 to the right, the best place in town is Jim's Steaks at 4th and South. This is the Battleship, New Jersey. If you missed it, we're going to see it again when we get down by the river. This white wall right beside us is Interstate 95, down to Florida, up to Maine. Right across it is the Moshelu, a ship that used to carry ore and grain. It's now a fine restaurant. So this was the bank of the river in William Penn's day. All that's landfill on the right. To the left is Society Hill. They have about 700 18th century houses there, and each of them a virtual mansion, fixed up by people who brought wealth to the neighborhood and put money into those houses. But they could have bought one. You could have bought one back in the 1960s for $10,000. Now it's going to be $1 million.